Edition of Bring the Zoo to You. My name is Raquel. I am a senior animal care specialist here at Habitat Africa, and we are coming to you live today from our African painted dog exhibit. We were planning on giving them a bunch of enrichment out in their yard, but the puppies chose not to come inside this morning. So instead we are going to be tossing some enrichment from the roof. This is something we typically do all summer for the dogs, but it's the first time the puppies are going to see it, so if they run away at first, they'll just need a few minutes to work up the courage to come back. So, Lee, we are ready for you. All right, so Lee is tossing some shank bones, some beef bones off the roof for them, and he also has some meat up there. And so that is our pack of dogs. I'd like to start by introducing them to you. We have a litter of 7 puppies that was born here at Brookfield Zoo on January 13th. Which makes them just about 15 weeks old. They turned 15 weeks yesterday. We have 2 females and 5 males. Our females are named Roane and Daisy, and our males are named Caesar, JP, Prospect, and Masikio. We have one little boy that's still waiting on his name. The pups were born to our female painted dog, Ingala. She is the one that's closest to us. Ingala came here with her sister Salu in June of last year, and they came here on a species survival plan breeding recommendation. The sisters are just over 2 years old. They were born in February of 2018. Painted dogs have unique markings on them, so each, like our fingerprints, each dog's markings are completely their own, and so that's how we tell them apart. So in the back are our 2 bigger dogs, Mom and Aunt. Mom, Ingala, is the one with the white on her sides, and Aunt Salu is the one that's more black and gold in color. I think she's chewing on some meat right now. Painted dogs are called several things. They are called African wild dogs, Cape hunting dogs, painted wolves, even sometimes the ornate wolf. They are in the family Canidae, which means that they're in the same family as wolves and coyotes and even our dogs at home. But they are very distant cousins to those species, even though they do share a lot of similar characteristics as them. And they are not considered a true dog. They have never been domesticated. They live in these cooperative family groups of anywhere between about 6 to 12, sometimes more adults, and then their yearling pups from the previous year. These packs do everything together. They hunt together, they rest together, they even care for pups together. They also take care of all of the old and sick animals in their pack. If an animal is too old to go out on a hunt, they'll bring meat back for that animal and feed them. And if an animal in the pack has any injuries, they will care for them and clean their wounds. Painted dogs are seasonal breeders, and each female can only get pregnant 1 time per year. Even though they live in these large packs of family groups, generally only the alpha pair will breed and raise a litter. Females are pregnant for just about 2 months, usually around 70 days. And in southern Africa, pups are usually born from about late May to early June. They can have litters that range anywhere from just a few puppies to up to 20 puppies at one time. Here in the United States, dogs in managed care usually breed in late summer, around like August or September, and then have puppies in the fall. Obviously, that's not the case with Ingala, who had puppies in January, but we have had puppies born in every month of the year. Ingala was a first-time mom, so these are her first puppies, and so 7 pups like she had is a pretty normal size litter. We didn't really expect her to have too many more than that. They're all chewing on their bones there. Pups will usually spend most of the first 3 months of their life either inside the den or around the den site. Ingala gave birth inside our building in a den box that was specifically designed for African painted dogs. When the puppies were born, their eyes were closed, their ears were all curled up, and they were only black and white in color. We used a den camera so that we didn't disturb Ingala or the puppies, but we were able to make sure they were nursing and that they looked healthy, and we actually can use the little white patterns to help identify dogs. So from day 1, we were able to identify all of the puppies. Within the first month after their birth, their eyes opened, their ears began to uncurl, and they started to come out of the den on their own, but only for brief periods of time. When they were just over a month old, some of that black in their coats began to fade into that gold color that's in their coats today. They were still nursing at that age, but they started to consume just small amounts of meat at that time. In the wild, painted dogs are nomadic, so puppies must grow quickly so that the pack can leave the den site, and that's why they begin eating meat at such an early age. Painted dogs are cooperative breeders. That means that females rely on assistance from the pack when raising their young. Both males and females will babysit the young and provide food for them. Most members of the pack have to go out on hunts regularly to provide food for the pack, but when they return, they'll regurgitate meat for both the nursing female and for her pups. Here at Brookfield Zoo, Salou, or Auntie Sel as we like to call her, has helped raise, feed, and as you just saw, even discipline some of Ngala's pups. Just like our dogs at home, these guys need to see the vet and be immunized to keep them safe and healthy as they grow. At both 8 and 12 weeks, the vets came out here to Habitat Africa to do a checkup on these guys and then to give them their vaccines. Dr. Mike actually made a video blog during their 8-week checkup that you can check out on the Brookfield Zoo's page if you'd like to see that. Just last week we got the okay from the vets that these guys could go outside, and I think Friday was the first day they came out here. So they're still busy exploring the yard and kind of getting to know the different levels of the yard, and they're enjoying themselves out here quite a bit. Like I said earlier, they chose not to come in earlier today because they like it out here quite a bit. Painted dog puppies grow very quickly. As you can see, they've already grown a lot in the last 15 weeks. When they are full grown, like the size of Ngala and Salou, they usually weigh between about 40 and 75 pounds. And they stand about 30 inches or about 2.5 feet high at their shoulders. Obviously, we fed them beef bones and some meat today. These guys are carnivores, which means they are meat eaters. Each adult can eat about 9 pounds of meat within a day. They are excellent hunters. They work as a pack to take down prey, and oftentimes the prey that they take down is much larger than they are in size. They can run long distances chasing prey and even reach top speeds of about 35 miles per hour when they're chasing down prey. Of the large carnivores, painted dogs are considered to be one of the most, if not the most, efficient hunters. Usually when they set their sights on a particular prey animal, that animal doesn't have a chance of getting away. Although sometimes after they've done the hard work of taking that prey down, larger carnivores like lions or hyenas will come and they'll steal that prey from them. In the wild, the pack would hunt and eat a bunch of different kinds of prey, from things like gazelle and antelope, warthogs, wildebeest. Sometimes they even take small things like hares. Like most predators, these guys play a very important role in their ecosystem. They help eliminate sick and weak prey animals, which maintains a natural balance for the prey species and improves the health of their populations by removing the sick and the weak. Here at the zoo, our animals get a zoo canine meat that's specially formulated for them. And in addition to that meat, we give them the beef bones like you saw, we give them bison bones, rabbits, and sometimes even whole or partial carcasses that they can share as a group. We do have a zip line over our yard, and we sometimes offer carcasses on the zip line for them. In Africa, painted dogs live in a variety of different habitats, from savannas and grasslands to woodlands and sometimes even semi-deserts. They were once found throughout much of sub-Saharan Africa. There were estimates that there were hundreds of thousands of them south of the Sahara Desert. But unfortunately, they have now disappeared from much of their former range. This is from things like overhunting, disease, habitat loss, and fragmentation that comes along with development and agriculture. And today, researchers estimate that there are fewer than 7,000 of these guys left in Africa. Mostly in places like Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Botswana, and South Africa, and they're confined to areas where human population density remains low. They don't do well in areas where there's a lot of people. Researchers and conservationists are still working hard to find ways to save these dogs. Some dogs in Africa now wear collars that protect them from accidentally getting caught in a snare wire. It lets them break the snare wire. These snares are set out to catch antelope typically, but sometimes the dogs will get caught in them as they're moving through the bush. And some countries are currently trying to create wildlife corridors between the wildlife reserves to help these guys move safely from park to park, because occasionally they are hit by cars. Brookfield Zoo actually supports a few of different conservation programs that work in the wild to protect painted dogs, which means just by supporting Brookfield Zoo, you are also supporting painted dog conservation. So does anybody have any questions?
Yes. How many teeth do they have?
Okay, so these guys have 42 teeth. They have 10 on the top and 12 on the bottom. That is the same as, 20 on the top and 22 on the bottom. That is the same as wolves, but their dentition's a little different, so their teeth are built a little different. They are made to slice through meat and even to crush bones. So even though they have the same number of teeth as some of the other canids, they're a little bit different still.
What's the difference between painted dogs and hyenas?
That is a great question, and that is probably the most common question I get here when I'm doing chats at Brookfield Zoo. They are actually quite different. A lot of people think they look similar because they're sort of similar in size, and they do have a sort of similar coat pattern, but painted dogs, like I said earlier, are in the canine family, the Canidae family, so they're more closely related to things like wolves or coyotes or jackals, whereas hyenas are in a completely different family altogether, but the family they're in is more closely related to the cats, so they're thousands and thousands of years of evolution difference between them.
So are they endangered?
They are endangered. They are actually considered the most endangered species, carnivore species in southern Africa. So there's also an endangered species called the Ethiopian wolf that lives in northern Africa, but in southern Africa they are considered one of the most endangered large carnivores. There's fewer than 7,000 of them currently in the wild, and at one point there were hundreds of thousands of them.
What are their big Mickey Mouse ears for?
So two things. Big ears help them hear very well, but also the research suggests that when they move through the bush, they collect the wind in those ears as they're running, and that helps cool their bodies down. These guys do not pant like our dogs at home, which is what our dogs do to cool down, and they don't sweat, and so by trapping that air in their ears, it helps cool them down.
Do the animal care staff interact with them at all?
So every single day we train our painted dogs, which we do inside our building, but we don't ever go in with them. They are a dangerous large carnivore, so everything we do is in protected contact, which means it's behind a stainless steel mesh, but we do interact with them by training them, and what we train them are husbandry behaviors, which are behaviors that help with their care. So for example, in Gala, when she was pregnant, we'd ask her to do a paws up behavior where we could see her belly and look for mammary development or just development of the belly, so that gave us a better idea of when she was going to give birth.
How much do the adults weigh, and how much do the pups weigh right now?
I do not know how much the pups weigh right now, unfortunately, but the adults usually weigh between about 40 and 75 pounds. It just depends on the individual. We've had animals that fall anywhere within that range. I can look up how much our pups weigh currently. We can post that on the website after.
Okay. Sorry, I lost my place. Can you remind us what their names are?
Sure. So our two adults, their mom is Ingala and their aunt is Salu, and they were both named after reserves in Africa where you can find painted dogs. And then our two female pups are named Daisy and Roane, and our male pups are named JP, Caesar, Prospect, Masikio, and one little boy is still waiting on his name. So we will hopefully have a name for him soon.
So why is the last pup not named yet?
We're just waiting. We have somebody who will be naming him, and we're just waiting on that name.
Like a donor?
A donor, yes.
Why do they have painted coats?
That's just their coloration. So it actually helps them camouflage with the grasslands in Africa. And so although here they obviously stands out quite a bit, if you think of tall grasslands, it's a mix of different colors, and they kind of camouflage in with that.
What do the giraffes think of the puppies, and what do the puppies think of the giraffes?
I guess the first few days the puppies came out, they did kind of take a good look at those giraffes. In the wild, a painted dog would not really go after a giraffe as a prey species. They're far too big. And so the giraffes are used to having painted dogs live next to them. They didn't really pay any extra attention. When I was in Africa a little while back, I saw a painted dog run completely underneath a giraffe, and nobody seemed to mind. So they don't seem to be bothered by each other.
Will all of the pups stay here? And if not, where will they go?
So they probably won't stay here, but they're too young to move away from mom and aunt yet. Usually when they're about a year and a half, anywhere up to a few years old, they'll move on. Male painted dog pups will live with their natal pack, or the pack they were born into, longer than the females. And when they do leave, they'll usually leave in same-sexed groups, and they'll go out trying to find other groups to create a pack with. So we kind of replicate that here at the zoo. So we would likely send groups of sisters or groups of brothers out together, and they would go to other zoos, other AZA zoos in the United States, and that would be on a breeding recommendation likely, and that would be determined by the species survival plan. So we'd have to wait, but for now they're all going to stay here.
How tall do they get?
So usually around at their shoulder height, they can get to about 2.5 feet tall.
Can you talk a little bit about their vocalizations?
Sure. So you might have heard them when the bones, especially when the bones first went in, but they make these very high-pitched noises, and those are called twitters. And they do not howl like a wolf, and they don't bark like a dog. They make instead these high-pitched noises. They also each have a who call, which is a distress call. Their high-pitched noises don't travel very far, so that's pretty low range noise. But if they want to talk to another dog over a distance, they have this call called the who call. It's a distress call, and each dog's who call is unique. And so if an animal gets separated from the pack, or they can't find an animal, they can make that call and they can figure out which dog is missing and kind of where they are.
Can they be domesticated?
They have never been domesticated. Our domestic dogs all descended from wolves. These guys have never been domesticated.
Earlier we saw one of the adults interacting with one of the pups, kind of squealing. Can you tell us what that was about?
Yep, so that was she was probably just disciplining the pups. Maybe somebody took a bone out of turn. The pups are allowed to eat first, so they are allowed to take all the food they want first. But maybe somebody pulled, I wasn't watching, but I did hear it. Maybe somebody pulled a bone from somebody else. So they're just teaching them how to be dogs. They're just disciplining them. And so they weren't hurting the pups. These guys rarely fight. They're kind of their society, or their pack is not really based on that. It's more based on or reinforced by like social etiquette, so rather than dominance. So there are observed reinforcing bonds a lot by doing things like greeting ceremonies, where other dogs will seek out all the other pack members and lower their head and arch their back in a greeting, but they rarely fight. So maybe it was a little bit of discipline, but it wasn't anything too rough.
Can you remind us how long they live?
Sure. So these guys can live to about 11 or 12, although often in the wild they don't live quite as long. That would be a pretty old dog, 11 or 12.
How long does it take for them to become adults?
So technically they become adults when they're about 2 years old, about 2 years old, but they will grow faster than that, so they'll be almost full grown well before that. All right, well, I think that is all the time we have today. Thank you for the wonderful questions, and thank you for joining in, for bringing the zoo to you.